And what's up, family? Welcome back to another episode of Flow and Tell with Links and Tony. On the heels of the last episode, where we were talking about, how our Father had said to us on a number of occasions that, life, it was all a game. It's all a game. And so I thought we would entitle this episode The Game. You remember, obviously, the board we haven't had the board in a while, and I thought it would be cool to go back and just, kind of get a reappraisal of where we've come from. Because to a great degree, it is kind of a game, right? This is the field of play for us, for the most part, is Earth. And of course, we have the cosmos that envelops us, right? The sky, the constellations, the stars, the planets, the luminaries. In a sense, it's the big game, right? It's if I had to name it, I would say it's basically you could say it's God, or the supreme consciousness, or the source, playing hide and seek with itself, with this manifestation of these different forms, elements, configurations, the substance of what we call life, of existence. And that's what this series was about, discussing and exploring different ways that we can look at this, again, I'm going to say game, and I'm not going to say game in a frivolous sense. It's the most all-encompassing, the deepest, the widest, the most profound game that we know of. We call it life. We call it existence. We call it consciousness, where we get the opportunity to participate in this pageant, of forms, passing forms, right? Because we know the energy changes and transforms and transmutes. And I know for us, it's been a great little ride in our aspect of the game. The game, you could say, is changing. I think the game as we've known it, as we've known it in recent memory, is changing. And I think we can all feel it, with the things that are going on around us, and the shift in energy, the shift in vibration, current events, and, a lot of, I don't want to say necessarily odd things, but a lot of odd things have been happening and will continue to do so as the game changes to a great degree from what we've known in recent memory. I would say that, there are certain constants, but perhaps the way the game is changing, at least for many people, is a change in perspective, a change in, hey, I never even looked at it in the context of a game. What if it is all a game? What if it is God playing hide and seek with itself, himself, herself, breaking itself up into fractals, sparks of light that we call souls, that have the opportunity to participate in this great game of hide and seek, where where our memories are wiped, the knowledge of who we truly are is stripped away, and the part of that game is the experience, of course, that the whether you want to look at it as a mental projection, however you want to look at it, the sensations, the feelings, the thoughts, the elements of being in such a dance, and we get to experience it. If it were not that our minds were wiped, where we're in effect gods in amnesia, you wouldn't have the same experience, right? The experience, it would be like going to an amusement park you've been to 1,000 times. Well, you're going to remember the way it was the last time, right? There's not going to be anything new. You're just going to experience it again. But when your memory, your soul memory, is not part of your mental consciousness, and you believe that you're here for just this one time in this one body, and you're not really sure what the heck's going on, but you have to come to remembrance of why you're here and what you perceive this pageant, this festival of light, of dark, of all that we know of duality, and the living between pairs of opposites, contrast, right? That's how we know we know what's good by what we feel is bad, and vice versa, right? We need the contrast in order to really fully experience a feeling. You're going to have the opposite feeling, something that is not that, so that you have that point of reference, you have that experience. So in our lives, we gain a certain degree or a certain proportion of experience, and then we filter it and process this through. But it is the idea of amnesia, of that you will have to come to remembrance of who you really are. That really is what ultimately, even though it's confounding, that is the essence of the game. Is it not? Why am I here? What's going on? Well, what if all those answers were already encoded in you, but you had to wake up to them? And what if part of the game was, I'm going to not remember so I can believe that this is actually reality and really happening, and that will give me the experience as if, this is all that there is. So we have this will to survive, this will to life. If you knew that you lived forever, or that you were part of something that was eternal, which is true, but if you knew that from the beginning, then it would affect how you experience this life, this world. That's part of the game, is that the profundity of the game is the experience. It's not, knowing facts and being able to connect all the dots. It's the experience that the game allows you to have, with all of its myriad forms and ideas and elements, and the swirl of energy, and the different, things that we think are solid but aren't actually solid, right? The whole thing, it's a pageant that we're participating in, but I would say that this aspect of the game is transitioning. Many of us are beginning to realize that we agreed before we came here, I'm speaking about the soul, we had a blueprint that at some point in this particular incarnation, we were going to wake up to the game. we may have been, and again, we know that not everybody buys into prior lives or whatever, but even if you look at it on an ancestral level, right? You would have to come to the conclusion that nothing is really isolated, right? It's a continuum, right? A continuum of experience. And I would say, it's just my opinion, that many of us are beginning to wake up to the fact that we've been in a game. A serious game, but a game all the same. And some of us may not have put in our blueprint that we wanted to wake up. Maybe we wanted to continue to play the game of illusion, the game of forgetting, right? To have experience. And then again, there's some others of us who have waking up to, wait a minute, I think what I did was, or I feel, it's a better word, what I did was I planned to wake up in this life, to wake up to the game, which means, or which could mean, that not that you wouldn't be in the game any longer, but that you would have a different perspective about the game. See, that's when you become more of the observer, as opposed to, the protagonist running around, not knowing what's going on, kind of like the Truman Show or something like that, and realizing that there's an aspect of, I've been here before, deja vu. Like this, I've been around this corner before, I've met this person before, but it might not have been that person. It may be the soul that is embodied in that person, and therefore there's a familiarity. But again, that's mostly for those who aren't stuck on the idea that there's only this one life and that's all there is. But I would propose that's what we're experiencing, and we could see it on a macro level on our earth with these changes and these odd things, that the game is shifting. And I would propose that part of that shift is the perception that many of us are receiving or will be receiving, that we're part of something. It's a mystery still, doesn't change that. It's a mystery adventure, right? But we're going to begin to see it from a different perspective. You could call it a higher perspective, where you see how everything kind of works together, where you see that time, as we know it in linear sense, doesn't really exist. As a matter of fact, there are many that would propose that the past, the future, and the present are all happening at the same time. That time is an illusion. The linear aspect is an illusion. That the past is actually happening now and the future is happening now. But it only happens in the now, which is why we want to be present in the game, right? When you're playing ball and, somebody's being a little lackadaisical or whatever, what does the coach tell them? Hey, man, get your head in the game, right? Get into the game. Participate to the fullest in the game. But when you begin to see things from a different perspective, you can enjoy the game in a different way that maybe you did when you weren't even aware that you were in a game. What do you mean game? The game of life, right? And you're given this brain computer, and you're given a nervous system and a body to play this game. That's the equipment that we have to play the game of humanity, of being a human in, what we call this solar system, this macrocosmic, microcosmic, mesocosmic mystery, right? And we've been given, as we've gone over in the past, we had our sampling plate, which included, a little bit of review on symbolism and astrotheology and mythology and psychology and linguistics, because so much of what we've been passed down to us from the wise ones has been in the form of metaphor, allegory, and parable from many different cultures. We've learned more about our intuition, which is our direct connection to, you could say, either the higher self or to God. Take your pick. Or to your spirit guides. Take your pick. We know that numerology, it also plays a great part, which is why we have the 12 constellations, the 12 pairs of cranial nerves in the brain, which correspond. We know about the pineal gland. You could call it the pineal gland or the pineal gland. That's also mentioned in ancient writings, including the Bible, where God is seen face to face, and the place was called pineal. For those of you who know the scriptures. And that's when that pineal gland gets activated when you meditate, when you raise your consciousness through the 7 chakras, or again in the Bible it's called the 7 churches. Not actual churches, these are the churches, the 7 chakras. And of course you have more than 7 chakras, but these are the main chakras, which is why 7 is such an important number, and it's considered a very spiritual number because of these 7 main chakras that are either virtues when they're balanced and operating as they were designed to, or they're vices, right? When they're rotating in the opposite direction, the counterclockwise direction. Again, for those who know about the chakras. So we have this interconnectedness, the churches, the temple, right? We know about the hemispheric split, the left brain and the right brain, the spiritual side and the intellectual side, all of this stuff, all these elements of the game, how we go to the top of the mountain. Well, why? Because when you are bringing that sacred fluid from the root chakra and the sacral chakra all the way up to the crown, you are going to the top of the mountain. You are going to higher ground where you receive the higher wisdom, right? The wisdom from on high. That's from within. But it's always framed as somebody going to the top of the mountain, getting 10 commandments or getting some special spiritual instruction. Great monasteries of the past and temples located at the top of the mountain is a externalization of what happens within, where we truly find the enlightenment, which is within, right? So we've learned that, these are the elements of the game that help to bring us at some point into remembrance of God's great game called life, called experience. It's a gift, right? But it may not feel that way when we don't have the perspective or the understanding that, okay, I think I'm getting it. And all you're doing is you're coming back into remembrance of yourself. Yourself. You don't need to know all the, ins and outs and details and all this, whether you want to call it academic or spiritualistic, or you don't need all of that. You just need to know that you are going within yourself to recover the memory of who you truly are, not the persona, not the mask that you've been given in this life, but the true pilot of your body, your soul. That's who's going to get the experience of this life. And that's how some would say God experiences itself is through us, through living beings. That's how the connection is made, because it's already there. It's just us coming to remembrance of it. So make no mistake, again, in my opinion, it's beyond words. Creation, experience, life. You know, when things aren't going good, of course, it doesn't necessarily feel that way. But just the fact that things cannot go good just as much as they can go good, if you want to call it good, because nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so, right? It's just how you look at it. But it doesn't come automatically with something, you know, fire can burn a house down, but it can cook your food. A knife, you can use it to cut some rope so that you can do what you need to do, but you can also hurt somebody else with it, right? It's depending how you use it. And that's what we're kind of learning, how we use ourselves, how we use our bodies, how we use our minds. It can vary our experience based upon usage. That's why it's really important, as the ancient Egyptians always made very clear, to know thyself. And therefore you will then know God, right? Because God is within. And you don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to wear a certain set of clothes. You don't have to spend no money. You just have to be willing to look within yourself and realize that, wait a minute, just the way I am, I'm cool. If I'm cool with the Most High, I'm cool, right? And you are cool with the Most High. You just may not know it yet because of all the chatter and all the confounding information and all the illusion and distraction and energy manipulation that goes on, because that's all part of the game. We agreed to it. You may not remember that you did, but that's why you're here. And you will learn and grow. And what do? We're coming back to knowledge of self, because that's going to give us the perspective that we need to go, aha, all this time I was kind of playing myself without realizing I was playing myself. If you understand what I'm saying. So anyway, we don't have much to add. I just kind of wanted to frame, based upon, like I said, that last video about the game. And that's probably a good way to look at it. Not in the sense of winning and losing, though, right? It's more in a sense of participation and feeling and experiencing what the game can offer you. And it's what you bring to the game. You get back from the game what you bring to the game. But again, we have to come up and, above water, and breathe and realize, wait a minute, the person I was waiting on is myself. Just to wake up to what's already there. Kind of like right in front of me, hiding in plain sight. The universe playing hide and seek with itself, right in plain sight. Anyway, that's all we had for this. And we thought, because I do believe, or I feel that we are coming to a serious change in the game, changing of the guard, changing the game, I thought it would be good for the next video is going to be the first musical track that we ever did, called Kalimbo. It's a musical meditation. Some of you might remember it, but it's, from 2.5 years ago or whatever, and it was hidden on the end of one of the other episodes, so not everybody's probably checked it out. But it's what I would call Oh, it's a watching meditation, because we said what you want to do when you want to go into the deeper meditations is you just want to collapse. You want to collapse things by watching them and not judging them, and not, you're just observing what's going on within the mind, but you're not getting involved, right? You're just watching the sheep go by. It's a watching meditation. It's a quiet meditation, and you remember Tony. And so we thought it would be good to kind of, we're coming full circle, right? We're coming back full circle in this game. It's like if it was a baseball game, we're kind of coming back home, right? Home plate. We batted at home plate. We came around on the bases, and now we're coming back home. So I thought that would be a good place to go back to, because Kalimbo is a good track for those of you who might be interested in what some call a guided meditation. I'd call it more of a watching meditation, because I'm saying a few things, but Tony created some really nice music for it. It's to help enable you to go within and come back to that still point, the center, the 0 point, right? Where you just become the observer, the watcher, and you will see, you will experience it within yourself, but you don't want to judge, you don't want to think, you just want to watch. And I think for those who are able to do that, and music often helps to get you to that point of where you're breathing, because the breathing is very important, and you're breathing deeply, and you just allow yourself to come back to the center. But it requires detachment from thoughts and worries and trying to anticipate the future and lamenting the past and judging yourself and judging others. You're just watching. You'll see all this stuff come up. It'll come up on the brain computer, but you just watch it, and it will move away if you don't pay it any attention. If you pay attention, you give it life. If you don't, it passes. And this too shall pass. And then something else will pop up to try to get your attention, to get you to pay attention to it. But hold on to your currency. Just watch. Once again, we thank you so much for all the likes, subscribes, hanging with us on this, this metaphysics and music kind of strange mystery adventure or whatever that we've been discussing and participating in this particular channel. We thank you. And for me, once again, all praise to the Most High, highest consciousness, source of all things, as we begin to recover our cosmic memory, and therefore we'll be able to be a part of this game in a way that maybe we haven't experienced before. So once again, peace and ashe.